Hi Stampers, this is Debbie Henderson from Debbie's Designs. Welcome to a new project for today. This is called a box card, and I'm going to show you how to score and glue and fold and everything you need to know about creating this card. This belly band slides off, and then you just grab the two flaps and open the card to reveal a box. Pretty neat, huh? So I'm going to show you how to do this. Let me put the belly band back on. And we're actually going to use the same designer paper and the same stamp sets, but we're going to use different ink colors and a different pattern. So let me give you the list of supplies you're going to need today. We are going to be using 3 stamp sets. The first one is Confetti Celebration, and I'm using the It's Your Day that you see right here. Garden in Bloom, and I'm using this image and this image, the 2 flower images. And the third is the Tin of Cards, and I'm using the Happy Birthday sentiment. For cardstock layers, we're using Sweet Sugar Plum 10 inches by 8 1/4 inches, and this is going to be the card base, and I'm going to show you how to score, cut, and fold on this one. Whisper White 2 1/2 by 4 3/4, and I'm using 2 different patterns from the Blooms and Bliss designer paper. The first sheet, you need a piece that measures 12 by 1 3/4. You need 2 pieces for the flap that measure 1 3/4 by 5 1/4. And the last piece goes on the inside of the box, and that measures 2 7/8 by 5 1/8. The second pattern, which is the coordinating colors, you need 1 piece that measures 1 1/2 by 12. And then 2 pieces that overlap the first layer, measuring 1 1/2 by 5 inches. I wanted to show you the pretty patterns that come in the Blooms and Bliss paper pack. Now this one I've used quite a bit of, so I don't have a full sheet to show you, but these are the 6 patterns on one side, and then you flip this over and you get 6 more patterns. The paper is just beautiful, and the stamp set that I'm using actually coordinates with some of the flowers on the pattern. We are also going to need stamping dimensionals, a ruler, paper snips, a bone folder, and then I've pre-cut the circles that we need that come from the Layering Circles framelits dies, and the scalloped one measures 2 1/2. And the layer that goes over that measures about 2 1/8. And then you're also going to need a small strip of Whisper White that measures 1/2 inch by 3 or 4 inches. We're going to end up cutting that, so it doesn't really matter how long that is. And you are going to need your Stampin' Pierce mat along with your Simply Scored scoring tool to do all the score lines. So let's get started. So to start off, we're going to start with the Simply Scored scoring tool. We're going to use the 10-inch side at the top, and you're going to score at 2, 3 1/2, 6 1/2, and 8. Going to turn this to the 8 1/4 side, and you're going to score at 1 1/2 and 6 3/4. So that's all there is for score lines. So now you're going to bring in your paper snips, and we're going to cut the corner square that you see there, or rectangle I should say, and you're going to do this on all 4 corners. So remove them completely. And when I cut on score lines, you can see how large the score line or how thick it is. I usually go to the inside so that you end up cutting that bump out of the way. So this is square number 3 and square number 4. Okay. Now you're going to make one more cut. Your paper's going the long way. You're going to snip just across like this to create a tab. And to make the tab easier for gluing, we're going to take a little snip off on the outside edge. So now we're going to flip it this way, cut off the tip, and last one. Okay, that's it for cutting. Now we're going to bring in the Stampin' Pierce mat. And again, on the long side, you're going to measure at 5 inches, which is the center point, and just make a little dot. Same thing on the other end. And then you're going to use your ruler, and you can see the 2 score lines are where the tabs are. You're going to use your stylus. You're going to find the pencil mark, and then you're going to find the corner right here where your 2 score lines meet. And you're going to create a score line. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So this is what it should look like it has a little peak. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So pencil mark to corner, and pencil mark to corner. Okay, and that's it for scoring. Now we are going to fold on all the score lines. So this one you fold towards the center and back the opposite way. So that's how this one works. Same thing with this side. So that's where your flaps come in to form your box. And then your flaps just need to be folded towards the inside. I'm going to stop for a second here and just erase my little pencil marks. And then you're going to fold these in, and they should butt up against each other. Make sure that the line is straight going across for this to work properly. Same thing on this side. Okay, so everything's folded. Now I'm going to bring in the liquid glue, and we're actually gluing the flaps to the outside of the box. Make sure that when you fold it over that it still bends right here and that it's even on the edge. Second flap. Again, even on the edge, and make sure it bends. Side number 2. And you could use tear and tape for glue also. I'm just using the liquid glue because it happens to be sitting right by me. And flap number 4. Okay, so all our flaps are glued. When this folds, it should go towards the center. So press down. And then again, I would flip it over and redo the burnishing on your score lines. Okay, so there's your box. See how quick that was? Now we're going to decorate. So I'm going to bring in my designer paper layers and my snail. And we're going to layer those. And you don't need to have 2 layers if you don't want to. I just think the designer paper looks good with the darker color and then against the lighter colored cardstock. And now we're going to glue these to the flaps. And I did make my designer paper so that's even on the ends. You can make them a little smaller if you'd rather have the layering. Okay, so that's what the designer paper layer looks like. Now we're going to do the stamping in the center. As you can see, I have a sentiment and a few flowers there. So I'm going to bring in a scrap piece to do my stamping. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the stamp set, the Garden in Bloom. As you can see, we have the outline images, plus we have the bold images that fill in. So this is considered a 2-step stamping. And this set happens to have the little flap that tells you how to position the stamp so they match. And I always put a little permanent marker dot on mine just so I notice where it is. And we're going to use the outlined image first. For ink colors today, I'm using Sweet Sugar Plum and Flirty Flamingo. So I'm going to stamp my sentiment first with the Flirty Flamingo. And I'm pretty much going to stamp it in the center. Isn't that a pretty color? It's one of my favorite new ink colors. And then we're going to do the outline of this flower first. And again, I'm using it so that my flap, the little flap, is facing upwards. If you do it so it's facing down, just remember that the other part needs to be in the same direction. Now, because I don't want my ink merging with the outline of the stamp, I'm going to ink my stamp, stamp it on my scrap first, and then do the fill-in. So you can see how much lighter that is, and that's called stamping off. I stamped off once on the scrap and then onto my flower. I'm going to do that a second time. And now I'm going to clean my stamps so I can switch colors. And we are going to bring in the Sweet Sugar Plum this time. And again, I'm going to do the outline first. This color is a little bit darker. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing and stamp off. So stamp on scrap, fill in the flower, stamp on scrap, fill in the flower, and one last time. This one here, I think I turned it. Okay, so that's our stamp layer. Isn't that pretty? So now we can glue the inside of the box. I'll bring in the designer paper and glue the stamped layer to the center. And then we're going to glue this to the inside of the box. Now, I did not add any embellishments to the flower because I want this to fold flat. I don't want it to be bulky with a button or pearls or rhinestones. This fits right inside the box. And now we're ready for the belly band. Now, because my scallop is the sweet sugar plum color, I'm going to stamp one more flower, and I'm going to do that with the Flirty Flamingo ink. This is a flower I'm actually going to hand cut and glue to the front of the belly band. Stamp on scrap. Okay, and we're going to hand cut this one. I know a lot of people don't like to fussy cut, but I find it very relaxing. As I'm cutting the flower, you'll notice I'm leaving a little bit of white on the outside of the lines. This will make it stand out more when I glue it against the contrasting color of the designer paper. If you've never used Stampin' Up's paper snips, these are the greatest scissors to be able to maneuver around curves. I love these scissors. I have like 5 pairs. Okay, we're going to glue the flower to the center with stamping dimensionals. And that's going on the designer paper layer. And then this layer is going to be glued to the scallop. Okay, so that's ready for the belly band. Now for the belly band, this is going to be too long, but we're going to adjust it as we go. So this needs to be glued to the designer paper. Make sure it's nice and straight. Okay, now you're going to bring in the box card. We're going to flip it upside down and put this around about 3/4 of the way. And you're going to fold. And we're going to do the same thing on this side, but make sure that it's not too tight because you do want it to be able to slide off and on. So this is pretty good. That's why I say it's much easier to cut this later. So I'm going to cut out about 1.25 inches. And then I'm going to glue it together. And then the scallop is going to be glued to the front. So just put glue in the middle. And the last step is to stamp the sentiment. I'm going to use Sweet Sugar Plum this time, and it's your day. I'm going to stamp that right in the center. And then I'm going to just cut off and cut a notch on each end. And we're also going to glue that down with stamping dimensionals. And that's going to go right in the center of the flower. Or close to the center. Okay, and that's how you create the belly band. And then it should slide right on. There you go. So there's 2 cards with 2 different patterns. And there's your belly band. If you have any questions, make sure you message me, and I'll list the supplies at the end of my video. And I'll have a link to my online store. And thanks so much for stopping by.